But if we are really going to do the work of abolition, we have to begin not just dreaming of a world without police and prisons, we also have to begin to engage it in practice. That means that we can't think of punishment and revenge as our first response to problems and crises. We have to ask ourselves, what does justice require? On Monday, July 6th, the Manhattan District Attorney's Office announced that it would be indicting Amy Cooper on misdemeanor charges of filing a false police report. For those of you that don't know, Amy Cooper was the white woman in Central Park who called the cops on Christian Cooper, who was a black bird watcher who asked her to put her dog on a leash as the law required. And when she didn't want to, she got mad at him and threatened to call the police. When he insisted on videotaping her and honoring his own right to stand still, she called the police and acted as if her life and her dog's life was in jeopardy. The world was outraged. And Amy Cooper lost her job. Amy Cooper lost her dog temporarily. And Amy Cooper might just be the namesake of a law for people who file false police reports on the basis of race. But now the district attorney's office is saying, no, we're going to go a step further and we're going to teach you a lesson to prevent anyone else from doing this. We are going to file actual criminal charges. Some of y'all out there are feeling good about this. On the internet, people are applauding this decision. And I understand why. For hundreds of years, white people have weaponized their whiteness, their alleged fear, their fragility, their womanhood against us in ways that put us in prison, that put us on death row, that compromise our life chances. So this is one of the few times where white people are being forced to pay the price for the manipulation of whiteness against us. I get it, but I'm going to say something that y'all might not like. It ain't justice. For the last couple of months, we are calling for abolition in a very public way. We are calling for the abolition of prisons. We're calling for the abolition of police. We are daring to dream of a world without police and prisons. And now we're calling for this woman to be locked up for something. Now, let me be very clear. We are not in an abolitionist moment yet. And so black people need some sense of justice. That's why we call for cops to be locked up, not because we believe in prison, but because we want them to have some kind of penalty when they kill us. We don't believe that cash bail works, but sometimes we want cops to pay a higher cash bail simply because we want the state to show that our lives are worth something to them. I get it. But if we are really going to do the work of abolition, we have to begin not just dreaming of a world without police and prisons, we also have to begin to engage it in practice. That means that we can't think of punishment and revenge as our first response to problems and crises. We have to ask ourselves, what does justice require? In this case, the woman's lost her job, she's lost her reputation, she has been certainly forced to pay the price. So, what will a criminal charge do? What will it prevent? It only serves to reinforce the idea that the system can work if we can also lock up some white people. But here's the problem. The system won't work, and two, it ain't gonna be locking up white people. If we begin to constantly reinforce the law of filing false police reports, you know who's gonna pay for it? The victims of domestic violence who later decide not to prosecute their significant others, their partners who are abusing them. And oftentimes they're afraid to move forward. It's gonna be maybe the person on the block who doesn't want to snitch on a local drug dealer because they're worried about being harmed. I'm worried about prosecutors weaponizing this law against the vulnerable, who are largely black, brown, and poor people. So even if you enter revenge, the revenge is going to be on us, not on a bunch of Karens. But beyond that, we have to think about what restorative practice looks like. That means we have to bring the stakeholders to the table and ask them what justice looks like. Christian Cooper has been very clear that he doesn't want her locked up. So what are we calling for? We're not calling for justice. At this moment, we're calling for revenge. And I know some of y'all might say he's caping for this white woman. No, I am not. I wanted her to feel the full impact of her actions. Like I said, she's been fired. Her name is now a metaphor for false police reports. She temporarily lost her dog. She's probably not going to be able to find another job. That's far more impactful than the community service she's going to get, or the small slap on the wrist fine they're going to give her. She ain't going to be in jail anyway with this kind of crime. It's just going to serve to reinforce the idea that police and prisons are the way to resolve our problems, and it's not. If we're going to dream of an abolitionist future, there are going to be contradictions, there are going to be tensions, there are going to be moments where we have to make tough decisions. And this is one of them. I have no sympathy for Amy Cooper, but I do believe in a world without prisons and a world without police. And we can't get there if we continue to use revenge as our primary weapon.
Hey, what's going on, fam? So another video. y'all just saw that clip from Marc Lamont Hill babbling, doing some white supremacy token babbling, trying to cape for Amy Cooper under the guise of, oh, we're going to abolish the police, so how can we call for Amy Cooper's imprisonment or punishment under the law? And those of us who are black first or consider ourselves black first, those of us who listen to the new black media and have been listening to them for a while, those of us who have studied our scholars like Marimba Ani, Elijah Muhammad, Khalid Muhammad, even though he's not officially a scholar, I consider him a scholar, Amos Wilson, uh, these kind of people, we understand are obviously the most prominent in this kind of situation, I would say, is Dr. Francis Cress Welsing and Neely Fuller. So those of us who come from that kind of background and that kind of crowd, the Black First, New Black Media, or those of us who have been studying our scholars who talk about white supremacy, um, we already knew what the deal was with Marc Lamont Hill for years now. But I still want to use him as an example because even though those black people that I just named or gave as examples understand who Marc Lamont Hill is, there are a lot of black people who don't understand who Marc Lamont Hill is. And I kind of making this part of the video to talk to them, should any of them happen to come across this video, even though I know that most of the black people who think that Marc Lamont Hill is some kind of soldier or warrior or any kind of benefit to black society, they're probably not listening to a video like this. They're too busy watching a Joe Biden, political rally or stream, because there has been no rally since the virus. But just in case any of them happen to listen to this video, I'm making this part of the video for them. But then I'm going to make the second part of the video for the main people who are on my channel, the people who listen to the new black media, the people who are black first, because I'm going to talk about another double talking agent. I'm making this video to talk about two double talking agents of white supremacy. The first one is Marc Lamont Hill. The second one is going to be Dr. Joyce Watkins. And the reason why I want to make, or not the reason why I want to make this video, but obviously the reason why I was inspired to make this video was because of Marc Lamont Hill's video and also some of the tweets that have been coming from the Twitter account of Joyce Watkins. So I said, you know what, let me make both these Negroes, let me make these videos just two videos or two birds in one stone. So let's talk about Marc Lamont Hill, because the reason why a lot of black people think that Marc Lamont Hill is a benefit to us or is on our side is because Marc Lamont Hill, like many of the tokens of white supremacy, are propped up by white supremacy to speak out against racism, to talk about how bad racism is, to talk about how it affects black people emotionally, and even, obviously to talk about how it affects us economically and all of this. But when it comes to solution time to these problems, these tokens either never offer a solution, and that's intentional, or they offer a nothing burger solution, like let's take white supremacists to the African American Museum, let's have uncomfortable conversations, let's talk about race, or let's have a black and brown program, let's have a minority program, when we already know that minority and affirmative action programs in particular have gone to 70% of affirmative action benefits have gone to white women. So it's a bunch of, they either offer a bunch of nothing burger programs that do nothing to help black society and actually set us back further, because it keeps us from fighting for tangibles and fighting for resources, because we are fooled into thinking we are given resources by these quote unquote minority programs and black and brown programs when they do nothing to help us. And the stats prove this. That's why the black white wealth gap is worse than before segregation. So this is not a debatable topic. This is not up for dispute that black people's condition has gotten worse, economically at least, since we desegregated society, or allegedly desegregated society, because America especially is still largely segregated. So these are the kind of things that these people do, but they put out signals. They, as I said, they talk about racism, they talk about how bad it is. They put out signals to make us think that we're on their side. And even in that video was a microcosm of how these agents work. Because Marc Lamont Hill put out all the signals. Hey, I get it. I understand how they weaponize whiteness, and I get it. I understand the anger. See, he goes out his way to say he gets it, the signal. Hey, guys, even though I'm clearly doing the bidding of white supremacy right now, I'm still on your side. I'm still on your side. And no, you're not, dude. You're not on our side. And it's evidenced by what you said. First of all, let's break down, because he made 5 key points that I want to address. First, he said, we are calling to abolish the police. Now, obviously, since the George Floyd protests, a lot of black people have come out saying that we should defund the police. And I'll be honest, I'm not sure about that strategy, because I know how white supremacists operate. And if we defund the police, the white supremacists are going to take that money that's supposed to be redirected into helping black people and just redirect it into a bunch of nothing burger, do nothing programs that will actually probably benefit a bunch of white people behind the scenes. But I get it. I get the theory of it, and I understand it, and I get the concept of it. I just don't know if it'll work in reality or work when we actually work in practice, when we actually put it into play. But I get it. I get the theory, because the theory is, hey, instead of funneling these millions upon millions upon millions of dollars into police departments so that they can have tanks and other resources to just run around terrorizing black communities in particular, let's take away some of those funds, not all of them, but let's take away some of that excess and surplus of funds that are used to buy things that police don't need, like tanks and other militarized gear. And let's redirect that into other programs that are more positive oriented instead of negative reinforcement, like police enforcement, like social programs, jobs programs, economic, whatever. But again, I don't believe that this funds are actually going to be directed into that. But that's the idea of it. Let's do other things that help reduce crime before a person even feels desperate enough to have to commit crime. Because as I've talked about in other videos, and it's been proven by sociological study after sociological study, poverty is directly linked to crime. And we know that under the system of white supremacy, black people as a group are deprived of economic resources, especially as compared to other non-black groups, especially white people. So I get the theory of defund the police. But fam, this is why I encourage people to study Neely Fuller, because what he says perfectly applies to what Marc Lamont Hill is saying. Because even though there were people talking about abolish the police, and I believe that was genuine and that came from the grassroots, Neely Fuller teaches us, and now when I bring Neely Fuller up, I don't agree with everything he says. Actually, I have some problems with some of the things that he believes. I have a big problem with some of it. I won't talk about it in this video, but maybe in another video I'll talk about some of the things I don't agree with Neely Fuller. And I don't have a problem with Neely Fuller as a person or as a character, but I do disagree with some of his philosophies, especially about white supremacy, because that's his main philosophy about the system of white supremacy. But overall, even though I do believe that there's some bones that you should throw out from the meat of his philosophies and his teaching, overall, he's someone good to listen to. Overall, he's someone that will help raise the awareness and consciousness of the average black person into understanding the system of white supremacy a lot better than most black people currently do. Even a lot of black people who think they understand white supremacy and are out there as activists and in the forefront allegedly against this fight against white supremacy don't really understand white supremacy to the degree that they should, and even they could learn from Neely Fuller a lot. But what Neely Fuller said was, white supremacy always takes both sides of the argument. So in this quote-unquote argument about police brutality and racism and race soldiers killing black people unjustly, you have one side of the argument, which is obviously back to badge, back to blue, I agree with white supremacy. You have that side. But then you also have the other side, which is obviously defund the police, Black Lives Matter, XYZ. So how can white supremacy take the Black Lives Matter, defund the police side and still operate in the benefit of white supremacy? Here's how. You say the same thing that black people are saying about defund the police, and you use some of your paid Negro agents to say it also, except you take the defund the police to another level, which is abolish the police. Because let's be clear, when people were first coming out saying defund the police, they had to defend themselves and make it clear, hey, we're not saying get rid of the police. We're not saying let's have a lawless society. We're just saying take some of the unnecessary money, some of the surplus money that's being directed to police, and redirect it into other programs that will make the need for police less. But nobody's saying completely get rid of the police, at least not in the strategy of defund the police. That was their defense. Hey, we are not saying abolish the police. But then all of a sudden, some other people came up out of nowhere, and I believe these Negroes are propped up by left-wing white supremacists, started coming out, and white people themselves started pushing this stuff out. These so-called white allies that were showing up to a lot of these protests, they were coming out saying, no, abolish the police. Now, let me tell you how that works in the benefit of white supremacy, because that makes sure that our goals will not be accomplished. Because most people of many races do not want to live in a lawless society. People want to see punishment for murderers and rapists and killers and thieves. People don't want to see these people get counseling. People want to see these people get punished. They want to see them thrown in prison, or sometimes even worse than that. If you're a murderer, some people want to see these people get murdered, and we actually have that as a legal punishment, the death penalty. Some people want to see rapists get raped. Some people want to see thieves get stolen from. But at the very least, people want some kind of prison incarceration punishment, if not some of those more extreme versions of the punishment I just mentioned. So hearing somebody say abolish the police is immediately going to diminish and undermine the support of the movement. And that is why the white supremacists are promoting that. So when Marc Lamont Hill comes out here and says, oh, we are calling to abolish the police, we are in a moment where we are going to abolish the police. No, who said that? Nobody was saying that until all of a sudden white people and certain agents of white people started coming out saying that. I never said that. I know a lot of other black people who never said that. So, first of all, that's Marc Lamont Hill's first problem, is that he's assuming and intentionally putting it on all black people, assuming that we all agree with this alleged abolish the police, which is different than defund the police, as I just explained. But they're trying to make them sound one and the same, because this is white supremacy's way of taking both sides of the argument. And that's why they put one of their Negroes, one of their main Negroes up front to promote it, like Marc Lamont Hill, so that we will be fooled into thinking that this is what we think. Because Marc Lamont Hill says that that is what he thinks. And we're supposed to look to him as a thought leader of our society, of black society. So if Marc Lamont Hill says it, the rest of us must agree with it also. Or at least a large majority of us must agree with it also. That is the game that's being played. Nobody said that, Marc Lamont Hill, except you and the other agents of white supremacy. So stop assuming that the masses of black people want to, quote unquote, abolish the police. But I'm going to get into even more how that is a cover for white supremacy, because then he uses that assumption, that false assumption that we all want to abolish the police, as a cover and an excuse to say that Amy Cooper should be let off. Then he starts asking questions and doing all these trigger words. Again, these trigger words and these are trigger words and signals to make us think that he's on our side. So then he says, what does justice look like? That's a stupid ass question. Justice looks like prison. Justice looks like equitable enforcement of the law. We don't need to ask that question. But he asked it because he wants us to think, oh, you see, guys, I'm thinking through what justice is, and I'm this thought leader who wants to bring justice to you guys, or help black people get justice. What does justice look like? And then again, these are setups and smoke screens for him to lead into the trick bag. So then he says, what does justice look like? And then he goes into these stories about how, oh, if a black person doesn't want to snitch, they're going to use the law to say that, against him, to say that he filed a false police report and throw him in jail. Or they're going to use a rape victim, a black woman rape victim. And if she decides not to go forward with the accusation, she's going to be prosecuted by a racist prosecutor. Or a domestic violence victim, the same thing. That's a nothing burger, because first of all, filing a false police report is already a crime. That's number one. So we don't need some new law that the white supremacists are all of a sudden going to twist against us. If they want to twist the law of filing a false police report against us and use it to prosecute us for not snitching, or for withdrawing a rape or domestic violence claim, he's already gonna do that. He would have already been doing that, and he's already going to do that. He doesn't need a new law to give him permission or a green light to pull that mess. So that's number one. That's a deflection nothing burger. And then number two, he brings up Christian Cooper and talks about, oh, we got to bring the stakeholders to the table. This what justice looks like. We got to bring the stakeholders to the table. And then he brings up the fact that Christian Cooper is a Sambo and a slave who doesn't want to prosecute Amy Cooper, and says, well, since Christian Cooper doesn't want to prosecute Amy Cooper, what are we doing? Listen, if we allow, this is one of the most dangerous parts of what Marc Lamont Hill said. Because we already know, we've seen it countless times. We saw what happened with Botham Jean's brother forgiving Amber Geiger. We've seen countless families who are waiting on a check forgive white supremacist murderers. So what Marc Lamont Hill is trying to do is he's trying to set up a society where if the black person, or trying to help the white supremacists set up a society where if the black person is a Sambo and forgives the white person who commits a crime from them, and all you got to do is send half these Negroes a check, and some of them you don't even have to send them a check. All you got to do is offer them some white vagina or some white penis, and they'll sell out themselves or other black people for a check. Now you're going to have black people allowing white supremacists to get off with to get away with murder, with rape, and all kind of other crimes, because they, quote unquote, forgive the white supremacists and don't want them to be punished. That is a very dangerous precedent. I don't give a damn that Christian Cooper, quote unquote, forgives Amy Cooper and doesn't want her to be prosecuted. That's not his decision. She broke the law. A civilian doesn't get to decide whether or not a person can be forgiven for breaking the law. Especially if there's indisputable videotaped evidence of that said crime. Even me, let's say a black person has a family of riders, and I'm not saying I do, but let's just say hypothetically I did. There's always still somebody, a cousin, an aunt, an uncle, a brother, that the white supremacists are going to be able to give a check in order for them to get up there and say how they forgive and how they don't want the white supremacists punished. And what you're going to have is white supremacists getting off left and right. And it's not going to apply to black people, because that's how white supremacy works. The white supremacists are smart enough to stay on code. Only black people's dumbasses are the ones who get up here hollering about forgiveness and how white supremacists shouldn't be punished. If a black man runs up in a white person's house and kills the whole family, ain't no white person going to be talking about how I forgive. And if they do want to say it, they're not going to be allowed on TV. Ain't no white person going to be running around saying how they don't want the black criminal punished who harmed their family. So it's only going to be white people that are getting off because of paid off or even non-paid off bootlicking, butt-kissing Negroes forgiving them. So what Marc Lamont Hill is trying to do with this, bringing the stakeholders to the table crap, is set up a situation where only white supremacists are getting off for murder and crimes more than they already do. Because we know a lot of them get off for crimes whether or not the black person forgives them. But now you're giving them this kind of opening and this kind of green light to be able to use the Sambo tap dancing black people as an excuse to let these white supremacists off from their crimes. This is the most dangerous part of what Marc Lamont Hill said. But the last thing I want to address is that and hold one moment, fam. The last thing I want to address is that when he said she's been punished. Oh, she lost her job. Oh, her reputation is ruined. Oh, she temporarily lost her dog. That example I just gave. If I run up in a white person's house and kill their whole family, guess what? I'm going to lose my job. I'm going to lose my reputation. I'm going to lose my dog. And I'm going to go to prison. So I don't give a shit that she lost all of these societal benefits, which are only temporary, by the way. She's going to have another job in short order. Her reputation is fine among the white supremacists. They're just pretending to be outraged right now. She already has her dog back. But even if she never got any of these things back, guess what? When I commit a crime, I'm never getting any of those things back. And yes, I'm using the example of murder because, again, Amy Cooper, not only did she file a false police report, but those of us who really understand white supremacy also understand that she committed attempted murder because she called the police in the hopes that they would come in guns blazing and murder Christian Cooper. So if we lived in a truly moral society, not only would she be charged with filing a false police report, she would also be charged with attempted murder. So I don't give a damn. I don't give a damn that, oh, she lost her reputation. Oh, she lost her job. Oh, she temporarily lost her dog. That's part of what happens when you commit a damn crime. We don't stop short of prison because somebody lost their job when they committed a crime. They ain't gonna stop short of prison if I do that, if my black ass does that, or if any of the black people listening to this video does that. So again, fam, that's all I want to say about Marc Lamont Hill. He's a dangerous ass agent trying to set up a situation where white supremacists get off for crimes even more than they already do. Yet, of course, he coats his language with all kind of double talk. I get it. I understand that the white people weaponize their racism. That all of that is codes and signals to fool silly black people into thinking, hey, I'm still on your side even as I cape for white supremacists. So just trust me and follow my advice when I tell you that we want to abolish the police and somehow this is an excuse to let Amy Cooper off for her crime. It's just another trick bag. But again, fam, as I said, most of us understand who Marc Lamont Hill is. We're not fooled by who he is. But a person that some of us do not understand is a double talking agent of white supremacy is the guy I call Joyce Watkins. And Joyce Watkins, he's been talking a lot about black on black crime on his Twitter timeline the last couple of weeks. And I already said in my previous video, I'm not going to re-debunk Black Lives Matter anymore. And I'm not really, but I want to add in one stat that I didn't mention in that video. And that's that, did you know that last year only about 5,000 plus black people committed a murder, a black on black murder? Or violent crime, not just murder, but black on black crime or murder or other violent crime against another black person. Did you know that there's 48 million black people in America? So that 5,000 plus is slightly less than 2% of the black population. So therefore that means that 98% of black people do not commit black on black crime, at least not violent crime. Now, the tweet you see up on your screen is a tweet from Joyce talking about the worst thing Black Lives Matter did to black people was convince you that you shouldn't discuss black on black crime. That's how over 100 people in Chicago can be shot in Chicago and nobody gives an F. 98% of black people do not commit crime. I don't know any black people who commit black on black crime. I don't know any black murderers. But since Joyce is putting the actions of the 2% on the actions of the other 98%, since Joyce is a black man, I asked Joyce, why haven't you stopped murdering black people? Since we're all responsible for it, what have you done? Why haven't you stopped murdering black people, Joyce? Why haven't you told your friends to stop murdering black people, Joyce? I don't know any black murderers, so why is this on me? Apparently you do, because you think all black people are responsible. So why isn't Joyce stop being a tap dancing Sambo and stop killing other black people? And why doesn't Joyce tell his friends to stop killing other black people, since the rest of us are responsible for the actions of 2% of us? But the reason why I'm bringing up what Joyce says is not just because he says this Black Lives Matter stuff, but if you look on his timeline, he's still mixing in double talk about against racism. He'll sit up here and talk about Bill Cosby or talk about other stuff. Let me read a previous tweet that I used for another video when I said that he said, if you only think black death matters when white people talk about it on TV, that makes you a white supremacist. There are many dead black people in Chicago from this weekend alone, and a lot of the people mourning George Floyd hadn't said a word about this. So him accusing other black people of being quote-unquote white supremacists while he's using a white supremacist talking point is, again, another version of the double-talking Negro, who will sit up here and try to give you signals that he's still on your side. But hey guys, I can't be a Sambo. I can't be a coon because I'm calling you a white supremacist in a derogatory way. So what I'm saying is really in benefit of black people and anti-white supremacy. No, it's not. Go listen to my last video. As a matter of fact, I'll put the link in the description box. Debunking black on black crime for the last time. Think about the stats I said in that video along with the stat I just said, that only less than 2% of black people are actually murderers, of black Americans, are actually the people who commit this black on black violence. Not only that, we know that those of us who really understand white supremacy, we know that a lot of white supremacists are the ones doing these shootings. That's why you have 100 and 200 people shot every holiday weekend, and yet the same cops who can find somebody based on hairs and fibers and DNA are all of a sudden Keystone cops and can't find these 100 people shooting people all weekend in broad daylight, even though they know that this is going to happen every weekend if it is allegedly black people. So they should already be posted up on Memorial Day weekend, on July 4th weekend, on all these other weekends in these high crime areas, stopping this, if it really was black people. But we know it's not. That's why you ain't posted up after 5, 6, 10, 20 years in a row where every 4th of July weekend, every Memorial Day weekend, 150, 200, 300 black people get shot. And yet you mean to tell me that you can't predict this by now? I bet you if 100, 200, 300 white people were getting shot every 4th of July weekend by black people, oh, the cops would figure out how to stop that shit real quick. So black people with intelligence, not black people who just have regurgitated degrees from the white supremacists, because intelligence and education are not the same thing, and Joyce Watkins is a living example of that. They would know that it makes no sense that every damn holiday weekend, black people end up getting shot in Chicago, and yet the cops can't stop it. Yet it's in the same areas, in the same parts of town. Let's read one more tweet from Joyce. And hold on, fam. I'm trying to find it now. as you worry incessantly about COVID-19, just wanted you to know that 77 people got shot this weekend. So you heard me read a tweet where he was saying 100 people got shot. So that was one holiday weekend. And now another holiday weekend from the 4th of July, he's talking about how 77 black people got shot. Again, fam, these are 2 weeks apart. You mean to tell me that the police can't predict this? We know that it's white supremacists and agents of white supremacy that are helping in this these mass murders or alleged mass murders in Chicago, if they're even happening, because they could just be false reports. I wouldn't put that past the white supremacists either. But again, Joyce wants to then sit up there and turn around after he spews a black on black crime talking point that is dangerous to black society and will get other black people killed, because as I already talked about in my Debunking Black on Black Crime video, that is a setup to harm other black people. It is a setup to give white supremacists cover to harm other black people. That's all it is. So I don't care what alleged good Joyce has done. He's undermining whatever pro or anti-white supremacy work he's done by being pro-white supremacists and by setting up the green light for black people to be murdered by white supremacists. And then he'll stick in these low-key Sambo talking points like, oh, we shouldn't talk about white supremacy because I'm a free black man. Joyce. So are you saying that Ahmaud Arbery wasn't a free black man because he got killed by the white supremacists? Are you saying that George Floyd wasn't a free black man because he got killed by the white supremacists? Are you saying that Breonna Taylor wasn't a free black woman because she got killed by the white supremacists? That's another Sambo talking point, because as I already talked about in several other videos, white supremacists always want to change the subject. They always want you to stop talking about white supremacy. That way you won't do anything about it, because you cannot solve a problem you will not even acknowledge is a problem. So Joyce is trying to advise black people to run around talking about, I'm free, that's why I don't talk about white supremacy, I'm a free man. It don't matter whether or not you free. That ain't gonna do shit when the white supremacists come for you. That's why we talk about white supremacy and why we speak out against it. It's not going to do a damn thing for you. Nobody gives a shit whether or not you consider yourself free. And as long as the system of white supremacy exists, you are not free. Whether you think you are or not free. That's a token of white supremacy, Sambo talking point. So when Joyce wants to sit up here and flip the script and talk out of the other side of his mouth, I encourage black people who are on Twitter, because I'm not, to comment to him and say, Joyce, what about black on black crime? No, make Joyce be consistent. Make him keep the same consistent energy. Nah, you want to flip the script, Joyce? Nah, we not going to let you flip the script. We going to make you stand on your coon square. So when you want to talk about Bill Cosby or anything else, nah, let's not talk about the racism against Bill Cosby. Because what about black on black crime? You see, Joyce, you don't get to pick and choose when it's appropriate to deflect from white supremacy, since you want to talk out of both sides of your mouth. Since you want to deflect from white supremacy when other black people are talking about white supremacy, then other black people should be deflecting away from it when you want to talk about it and make you stand on your damn coon square and hold your own words against you. Nah, Joyce, you the one who said, what about black on black crime? So don't talk about Bill Cosby. What about black on black crime? Don't try to sit up here and flip the script and play both sides of the fence like the agent that you are. Nah, stick to what about black on black crime, Joyce. Don't talk about why black people need businesses. What about black on black crime? But anyway, fam, that's it. That's really all I want to say about Joyce, because at this point, I'm probably going to get into, totally re-debunking the black on black crime talking points. But the last thing I want to do, fam, is actually play some clips from Tariq Nasheed. Now, as far as I know, Tariq Nasheed and Joyce Watkins are not enemies. I'm not trying to start a beef with them. They're grown men. I shouldn't be able to start a beef between them anyway. And I'm not saying that Tariq needs to take a certain stance on Joyce. He's a grown man. He can choose how he wants to handle his affiliation or his association with Joyce Watkins. But Tariq said some things about black on black crime Negroes, or Negroes who say that, even though it wasn't directed at Joyce, or at least I don't think it was directed at Joyce. It applies perfectly to what Joyce said. So that's how I want to close the video. So after you hear me talking, you'll hear the clips from Tariq Nasheed, just to drill home the point. Because as I said, I'm not going to be the one debunking black on black crime any further. So anyway, fam, that's another video. Like, share, subscribe, and peace.
Of contradictions. All right? That's going to be the topic of today because, see, white supremacy thrives on contradictions. And black folks, we got a very bad habit of buying into the contradictions, being allowed to hold ourselves up to this crazy, high, impossible standard. You understand? We allow ourselves to be placed on this insane, impossible standard that nobody can maintain a standard like that. See, black people, we're told, and then we start telling each other, if there's black crime, then we're somehow deserving of white supremacist punishment. I want y'all to get out that stupid ass mindset. I was talking about, some of these protests where brothers are showing up armed, and there's a couple of coons trying to parrot the words of the white supremacists talking about that need to be done up there in Chicago. And I was asking a little butter biscuit eating Negro, I said, okay, some of these armed protests are not in Chicago. What does Chicago have to do with anything? Well, there's a lot of crime up there. Something got to be done. Okay, what's your black ass doing? Well, I don't live in Chicago. I live in Jersey. So what the fuck are you talking about? You're just talking for butter biscuits. You're talking coward talk. I don't want to hear from you cowardly, old, dusty Negroes. I really don't. Whenever you hear a motherfucker talk about, what about Chicago? Why don't they go up to Chicago with all them guns and stop all of the gangs? That's an old, sorry, tired, bummy, cowardly Negro who's waiting on his little pension to kick in. You ain't fooling nobody. It's always an old Negro talking that dumbass shit. You ain't fooling nobody. You ain't done nothing about the crime in Chicago, bitch niggas. You ain't done nothing about it. If you ain't done nothing about it, shut the fuck up. Don't say nothing. Let me tell you something. I've been up to Chicago. I got a lot of love in Chicago. I've been all up in the streets of Chicago, promoting the black businesses up there. Not only that, I've been up there to Chicago getting people jobs. I've always promoted my brother who has an employment agency up there. My man JJ, I've been putting people onto him for years, and he's been employing people. So if you're not, I do shit out there. So don't ever come my way talking about somebody need to do something about Chicago. I've done stuff to help the people in Chicago. Many things. I've had backpack giveaways to the children up there. I've always done stuff to help the people of Chicago. Nigga, what have you done? If you ain't done nothing, shut the fuck up. I don't want to hear none of you niggas talk that Chicago shit because all you're trying to do is get some brownie points from white people. Shut the fuck up. You coon ass niggas, stay in the coon corner. Just be a quiet coon. Yeah, just stop all that Chicago. So now, you're starting to see a lot of black folks who are going extra with the all lives matter. If black lives matter, shouldn't all lives matter? Now, family, when Negroes start talking like that, oh yeah, the Karen Act that they're trying to put together out there in San Francisco up there. But now you get to hear a lot of all lives matter talk. And why we be doing all this crime in the black community. All of that, when you hear Negroes saying that, that's a deflection. Why are we doing all this black on black crime? That's a deflection. Yeah? That's a deflection. Because any Negro who runs around talking about what about black on black crime and what about all the shit that black folks do to each other, okay, ask them one thing. What are you doing to stop it? If that's more important than white supremacy, Negro, what are you doing to stop the black on black crime? What are you doing to stop that? Nothing. It's nothing but a deflection. They're not doing a goddamn thing. Because you can't do a thing about it. And that's why they say it's a very useful deflection, because number one, you can't do anything about other black people committing crime. Every group is going to commit crime. Black people are the only group that's told that in order for you to get justice, you have to be held to an impossible standard of a crime-free community. That's impossible. You understand? That's an impossible standard. No community of people is going to be crime-free. It's impossible. And we're the only people who are held to an impossible standard, which is basically white supremacy. It's all, well, if you don't live up to this standard, we're going to justify punishing you into perpetuity. Okay? Any Negro who says, what about black on black crime, it's nothing but a damn deflection. Because let's say magically you stop black on black crime tomorrow. Ain't no more black people committing crime. Now what you gonna do about white supremacy? The white supremacy is still there. The problem is not black on black crime. The problem has always been white supremacy. If we're gonna talk about black on black crime, let's start peeling the layers back and ask questions. Because like our wonderful Queen Mother, Dr. Frances Cress Welsing said, all roads lead back to white supremacy. Okay. You want to talk about black on black crime? Now what about it? Well, black folks be shooting each other. Okay, why? Niggas be grimy. Why niggas grimy? Because they be all in the hood, trying to rob each other. Okay. Why is this black person in a position where they got to rob somebody? Well, he's in the ghetto. Why is he in the ghetto? Because he ain't got no money, he can't afford to move out. Oh, okay. How come he don't have no money? Well, because of, ain't no opportunities. Okay. How come he doesn't have opportunities? Well, because racism.